The identity shift, separating who you are from what you do. What if the reason you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained is because you've been carrying an identity that was never meant to define you? In today's episode of Cut to the Chase at 8, we're unpacking one of the deepest sources of burnout, confusing who you are with what you do. We'll explore how identity gets tangled in productivity, performance replaces presence, and micro boundaries create emotional freedom. So take a breath, settle in, and let's get into it. Hey y'all, I'm Madison Samone Chase, also known as Miss Chase, raised by an incredible single mom who is my biggest fan and my best friend for real. I'm a celebrity certified personal trainer, fitness and wellness expert, and sports and entertainment media host. I was born in Fort Worth, raised in Dallas, and built in Los Angeles. I trained at Juilliard with the School of American Ballet, becoming the world's only three-time ESPN Miss Fitness champion, appearing in over 450 fitness DVDs. The first of those DVDs, 450 of them, was led by celebrity trainer Gunnar Peterson, known for training the Kardashian family. As a personal trainer myself, I've worked with some notable clients such as Robert Pattinson of Twilight and Batman, Chris Tucker of Rush Hour, and Amber Riley of Glee, Dancing with the Stars, and the Masked Singer champion. And as a sports and entertainment media host, I've had the joy of interviewing Richard Branson, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Emma Stone, Viola Davis, Tyler Perry, and Tiana Taylor, and many, many more. I share my story to honor the sacrifices my mom planted so I could blossom and flourish into the woman I'm still becoming. So wherever you're listening from, pull up a digital chair, grab some herbal tea, hot or cold, and welcome to my cozy home of Cut to the Chase at 8, a 15-minute micro-learning moment for macro living. And I am so overjoyed that you are here, because this is where we explore life, spirit, mind, and body through lived experiences, mine and yours, and intentional growth. So join me daily for just 15 minutes, twice a day at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central, because this is your daily pause for a cause, for clarity, for wellness, for allowing grace in this space, in whatever space you're in, and for intentional decision making. Each episode, my offer to you is 3 keys and 1 reflection question. Something practical, something grounded, and something you could carry with you. So let's breathe in together. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's cut the noise. Let's get clear. Let's get ready. Let's get set. And let's grow. All right. We are settled in. Wherever you are right now, if you're driving, walking, cooking, resting, or simply pausing with me, I want this moment to feel like permission. Permission to breathe, permission to be soft, permission to exhale. And here's today's question. What if the reason you're exhausted isn't your workload, but your identity load? Because most of us were taught something very early, that our worth is tied to our productivity, that our value is measured by our output, that our identity is defined by our role. So we grow up becoming the achiever, becoming the stronger one, the strong one, the responsible one, the dependable one, the leader, the helper, the provider, the servant. And slowly we forget who we are beneath all of that. So how does our identity become entangled? From childhood, many of us were praised for being responsible, being productive, being helpful, being capable, being reliable. And these are all beautiful qualities. But when identity becomes tangled with performance, something subtly happens. We stop resting. We stop receiving. We stop asking. We stop pausing. And we begin carrying everything. And carrying everything eventually becomes a heavy burden, not physically, but emotionally, which brings us to key number 1. You and I are not our roles. What you do is how you earn a living. This is not who you are. Let me say that again. What you do is how you earn a living, make money, provide. But it's not who you are. When we confuse the two, we experience chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, identity confusion, loss of joy, burnout, because now your worth depends on performance, output, achievement, approval, labels, instead of presence, being, connection, alignment, creativity, and freedom. And so my lived experience, my corporate identity collapsed. There was a season where my work identity completely overtook my personal identity. I was productive, I was successful, I was achieving, but internally, I was depleted and worn out. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to rest. I didn't know how to separate my value from my performance because I had been rewarded for achievement for so long because I'd been working since I was in high school. And I unconsciously learned if I slow down, I lose value. And that belief nearly cost me my health. When your identity is fused with productivity, rest feels unsafe. Stillness feels uncomfortable. And silence feels threatening because you no longer know who you are without output. And healing begins when you start asking, who am I when I'm not producing? Which brings me to key number 2. Micro boundaries create emotional freedom. And boundaries aren't walls. They are self-respect. They are self-trust. They are emotional safety. Because most of people think boundaries require big dramatic changes, and they don't. They begin with micro choices, small decisions, gentle shifts, intentional pauses like pausing before you say yes. Asking yourself if you actually have capacity for what someone is asking you to do. Stepping back instead of pushing through. Resting without guilt. And choosing silence over explanation. Because micro boundaries restore nervous system safety. And nervous system safety restores clarity. Here's my lived experience in boundary awakening. There was a season where I realized I was over-functioning in relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. I was giving more than was given back to me. I was explaining more than was necessary. I was accommodating more and not requiring that accommodation for myself. I was shrinking more and not advocating for myself. And I told myself I was being kind. But what I was really doing was abandoning myself. Boundaries taught me that you could be loving without overgiving and oversharing. You could be given and be kind and given to other people without overextending. You could be supportive without self-sacrificing. You don't have to sacrifice yourself or advocate for yourself. And that realization changed everything. Because freedom isn't about escape, it's about alignment, which brings me to key number 3. Identity clarity creates emotional peace. When you clearly separate who you are from what you do, something powerful happens. You stop performing and you start being. You stop asking to be and you just start being. You stop thriving and you start aligning. And you stop chasing validation and you start living with intention and freedom. And identity clarity creates emotional peace and rest because now your worth is intrinsic. It's not earned, it's not negotiated, it's not proven, it's simply inherent. And my lived experience of releasing the mask. There was a moment in life that I had to confront a hard truth because I was wearing a bunch of masks. And It's interesting growing up, one of my favorite songs has always been George Benson, and the words for Masquerade is, "Are we really happy here with these lonely games we play? We're lost in a masquerade." So if you don't know that song, listen to it. Because I was wearing the mask of being the strong one. I was wearing the mask of being the accomplished one. I was wearing the mask of being the dependable one. I was wearing the mask of a lot of things. And underneath those masks was a person, a little girl in me who needed rest, who needed softness, who needed healing, and who needed space and grace. And when I allowed myself to lay down those masks, I didn't become weaker. I became freer. I freed myself because authenticity doesn't require performance. It only requires honesty. So bringing it all together, you and I are not our jobs. You and I are not our productivity. You and I are not our achievements. And you and I are not our titles in whatever it is that we do, no matter how great the job is. You are not your output, because we are a little girl or a little boy inside an adult body that deserves love. And when you separate who you are from what you do, you begin to breathe again, rest again, feel again, trust again, and live again and be free. To be who you were called to be, your purpose. And so one reflection question for this episode: where in my life have I been confusing who I am with what I do? And what would change if I gently separated the two? And I want you to notice what comes up for you. And when you think about who you really are and your purpose and your calling, and you're separating those two things, do you feel free? Because awareness is where healing begins. So before you go, thank you truly for sharing this time and this space with me and giving yourself grace in this space just for 15 minutes. Because it is truly an honor to sit with you in this space. And so let's quickly revisit today's 3 keys. You are not your role. Now, there are some roles where you are your role. If you are someone that is called to the ministry, yes, you could be that role. Those two things can easily be who you are or part of your identity. But for most of us, what we do day to day and how we earn a living is not necessarily who we are when we get home and we spend time with our families and the things that are important to us. And key number 2, micro boundaries create emotional freedom. Freedom, that's such a word that we often say, but do we often lean into really what freedom means? And do we often set boundaries that allow us to be free? Because the thing that I learned about creating micro boundaries, people who are used to stepping all over you, used to you over giving, over sharing, over explaining, used to you sacrificing yourself and things that you want for them, they shift because they realize you're no longer the person that can be walked over. And key number 3, identity clarity creates emotional peace. And when you finally get clear that you are not your role and that micro boundaries create freedom, emotional freedom, that identity clarity creates emotional peace. And your one reflection question: where in your life have I confused who I am with what I do? And what would change if I gently separated the two? If today's episode offered you clarity, grounding, or a pause for a cause you didn't know you needed, or if anything I shared today pricked your heart or lit a spark, please subscribe, share this with someone you care about, and leave a comment so that this isn't a monologue but a dialogue. And leave a 5-star rating because it helps the space to grow. Now let's close with one breath. Inhale for 3, 2, 1. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. and again at 8 p.m. Central, because this is Cut to the Chase at 8 with me, Madison Samone Chase. Let's cut the noise. Let's get clear. Let's get ready, set, grow, and go, and be great. Blessings to you and yours. Until tomorrow.